Welcome. My name is Andreas Hatzigiorgio. I'm the CEO of the Stockholm Chamber of Commerce. And a warm welcome to this digital and live event, which will be exciting and share with us new insights on some innovative ideas and thoughts on how to move forward when it comes to basically arbitration and facilitating trade and business. I'm so glad to see all of you here at Nationalmuseum in Stockholm, in our radiant, grand capital, which recently, by the European Innovation Scoreboard, was ranked as the most innovative region in all of Europe. And that is something to be proud of. It's also a sustainable region that fosters sustainable development through a business community that really cares about society. So I'm really happy, I'm jubilant in fact, to have all of you here. Also a warm welcome to all of you all around the world that are tuning in and participating in this digital event as well. If we know anything from history, it's this: trust fosters trade relationships and investment. And in turn, trade and investment fosters trust. So this splendid exchange is something that we need to work tirelessly to constantly develop. And this is exactly what we do through our world-leading innovative Arbitration Institute. And that is why I'm proud to say that the Stockholm Chamber of Commerce, being the oldest chamber of commerce in Scandinavia, in fact, the oldest chamber of commerce in all of the Nordic region, is committed to developing effective, efficient arbitration methods and delivering services that in turn fosters trade and enhances business. Today we have an exciting program that will include speeches by the general counsels of two fast-growing international companies, and they will share with us experiences from building an in-house legal department. We also have a panel discussion about trends and challenges in commercial dispute resolution of today, and we will also, importantly, look at a new dispute resolution tool, the SCC Express. But without further ado, I want to welcome up our new Secretary General of the Arbitration Institute, Mrs. Kristin Campbell-Wilson. A warm applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kristin, you were recently appointed Secretary General of the Arbitration Institute. What do you consider the main tasks and challenges that lie ahead of you and the Institute?
Thank you, Andreas. This is very much connected to what you just said. Our mission is to facilitate trade and business, and the way we do this is through offering the global business community efficiently and effective dispute resolution methods. And in order to be successful in this pursuit, we need to keep a dialogue with our users. So the companies to identify their needs and their developing needs so that we can help you resolve any dispute that comes your way. So tonight is especially exciting for us because this night is for you. We want to know everything about what you need and how you work and how you view dispute resolution. So very excited to be here.
Exciting indeed. And can you give some examples on how the Institute and you actually help to foster business and trade?
I can. One example is the fact that the SCC is the first of the major global arbitration institutions to switch to digital processing. And this means that we now communicate with parties counsel and arbitrators through our electronic platform, online platform, which is a cyber-secure space within which the parties, the arbitrators, and the SCC get to manage their disputes.
And are there more examples of this?
Yes, I mean, we are consistently looking to offer services that are modern and relevant to the business community, and the services that we provide are really procedures and rules through which we offer ways, different ways in helping parties to come to an end, reach an end of their dispute. And this means that we sometimes innovate and come up with new rules and new ideas. And one example of that is the recent launch of the SCC Express, which we will hear more about during this event.
Yeah, and we will hear more about SCC Express, and we will hear more from you, Kristin. But for now, a big round of applause to our Secretary General. We will briefly start with our first panel discussion, or actually our panel discussion, the panel discussion. I can promise you it will be something to remember, because the panel participants, two of which will deliver some interesting presentations. I can say interesting because I've glanced at a few of their slides, and it's just mind-blowing. I can promise you that. So the panel will be moderated by Kristin. But before that, I want to invite up first Mr. Oscar Hållén from Klarna, who's the General Counsel at Klarna. A big round of applause. So Oscar, since 4 years, General Counsel at Klarna, FinTech unicorn. I think most of us have used your services. I can say that I'm very satisfied and happy and impressed with Klarna, both as, a representative of the business community in this city, but also as a user. You offer global payments and shopping services to 90 million consumers across the more than 250,000 merchants in 17 countries. And you have a background from the law firm White & Case in Stockholm and New York, Alter Equity, and Microsoft as well, and several years as a speechwriter, right, to the Swedish Prime Minister. So an exciting, interesting, and relevant background. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great to be here. Super excited to be here. And you can't see, but there's actually a little box here with a number. And when it close to 0, for those of you who've seen the Squid Game, unless I'm awarded with a really, really big applause, there's actually a trapdoor. It's going to open under me. So please help me out at the end of my speech. So super excited to be here. I have 8 minutes at my disposal. I'm going to cover 4 points. I'm going to talk a bit about what Klarna is. Some of you already know Klarna or think you know Klarna. I'm going to talk a bit about our operating model, our ways of working, why is that important. And that's going to pivot, hopefully, pretty nicely into legal at Klarna and how we think a bit about disputes. And I'm going to round up with share a couple of my mistakes and learnings with you. So, Klarna, obviously well known for those of you from Sweden. Use Klarna. Our brand recognition is very high here in Sweden. But most of us don't know, or sort of Swedish consumer may not fully recognize that. Now you used all my all my metrics, Andreas. But you know we have grown quite significantly over the last couple of years, and you know with 250,000 merchants in 90 plus active consumers, Sweden is important, but you know Germany is our biggest market. We are growing significantly in the US and UK, who might hopefully soon rise to the top on our biggest markets. But when you talk about sort of a high growth company like Klarna, what's really interesting is to take a couple of steps back and what has actually happened. And I wanted to take you 5 years back and look at what's happened since. And obviously moving from 6 markets, 500 employees to 4,000 employees. We were 9 lawyers back in the days. Now we're more than 120 lawyers. And our merchants and customer base has grown, significantly. Obviously, adding a bank adds a lot of complexity. But what has actually facilitated this growth and allowed us to scale is what we believe our operating model. And that is, we have moved away from this very traditional silo structure into a model where we broke down the whole company into individual problem spaces. And those problem spaces are tasked with cross-functional teams. And they are end-to-end responsible for their specific problem area. And each team, we consider them to be their own startup. They have their own budget. If they need more budget, they go to their management, their investor, and pitch for it. And when you think about it this way, it also makes a lot of sense. Why aren't lawyers part of the cross-functional teams? Of course they are. So we added lawyers to the teams as well. We call them domain lawyers. And we have roughly 60 domain lawyers right now, and that's increasing every day. And on top of that, to service a lot of the in-house lawyers, we introduced a very, very small central legal function dealing with highly specialist areas such as disputes, but also patents and IP questions. But when you move to this very, very distributed model of responsibilities, how do you make it work? And how do you make the legal aspects or the sort of the legal work streams work as well? How do you ensure you have enough oversight? How do you make sure that people deliver to the standards that you believe are the right standards? We introduced a couple of principles which we think from the sort of in the legal competence of Klarna is extremely important. The first principle is that we do one thing in our day job, and that is problem solving. Every day. It might be easy problems, it might be hard problems, but that's what we do. We are the finest problem solvers in Klarna. That's what we think about ourselves. Sometimes we fail, we often fail, but that's what we strive for, right? And to do that, we try to apply, for those of you familiar with the Aristotelian principle, or not principle, but idea of first principle thinking. That is our approach, how we peel the onion. By trying to deconstruct complex legal problems in a regulatory environment, we need to try to think differently because our client wants to disrupt the world of payments. And you cannot do that by applying traditional legal thinking or the traditional legal method. We have to try to challenge ourselves. And, a lot of you here are obviously lawyers. Ultra engagement with our client is extremely important for them to understand that we are on top of their matter, that we are working with this, and this is really a communication point. Like we need to be very, very good at communicating with our client who is not another lawyer. And we are accountable for the legal advice that we give. And for the lawyers who sit in product teams or commercial teams, they are also accountable for the product together with the rest of the team. This is a very, very important aspect of Klarna. You are accountable for the problems that you're trying to solve. And of course, we try, as everyone in this room, we challenge ourselves, and we challenge ourselves, have we really arrived at the right conclusion? Could we do this in a different way? Is it complex? Yes. Is that an excuse not to try? No. If it's complex, it's probably the right way to do it. And how does this tie into dispute resolution, one might ask? Well, at Klarna, we can sort of sum it up that we have roughly 4 buckets of contracts. One obviously being the end consumer, the second being, our merchants, and then we have, vendors, as most companies have, and also a special category of sort of payment partners. And how we deal with dispute resolution, obviously very different. But take merchant contracts, for example. We are trying, and we have been for some time, been on a digital transformation journey where we monitor each clause with KPIs to get away from anecdotal decision-making in how we draft our contracts. This is not rocket science, but it's hard to apply in a good way, in a scalable way. And then we can understand, why is this clause being negotiated? Is it because maybe, and this has often turned out to be the case, our counterparty, who's not a lawyer, don't understand it? it's over-lawyered. We need to start and go back and think about what is the user experience of the contract. That is something that is often overlooked. Now I have 1 minute to share some challenges and learnings. And you know, when you're moving from a 20-people organization to a 120-people organization, recruitment is top of your agenda. And I think whether you're recruiting 1 person or 100 persons, if you delegate the responsibility of hiring to talent acquisition, you're going to lose. You are responsible for hiring, and you need to be on top of that. And at the same time as you try to recruit, you need to try to scale yourself. And you're going to have all these salespeople come to you and talk about, oh, contract automation, you're going to use AI, machine learning, wow. Ignore them. That is super important, but that is a complex thing and time-consuming to implement. There are much low-hanging fruit out there. You know, you can start with a basic thing as sort of having a decision tree to help the customer understand which person in an organization can sign the NDA. Then, keeping the team together, don't forget that, especially important during COVID times. And identify your future leaders who will help you grow the organization with you. These are 4 things I've tried, I failed, I learned a lot, and I've tried again. But I'm going to stop there, and if you have any questions, you cannot ask them now, but you can maybe reach out over LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
A big round of applause. Thank you, Oscar, really. And you will be back in the panel format. Without further ado, I want to invite up Mrs. Sofia Graflund. A big round of applause. General Counsel for Northvolt. So,
thank you.
Sofia, General Counsel for Northvolt, the fast-growing Swedish company that wants to revolutionize the battery industry, and you have been the General Counsel, correct me if I'm wrong, since 2018, right?
That's right.
Yes. And also very interesting, impressive background at the Swedish law firm Vinge. Also worked with investments through Swedfund, has founded the Numiosa Children Foundation in Uganda.
Well pronounced.
Thank you. I also try to be kind with people that try to pronounce my last name but do it completely wrong. So I understand that that was just something that you said to be nice. But it's a really, really nice foundation, and I hope that we can learn more about it at another time. You have also been named Årets Bolagsjurist, General Counsel of the Year in 2020. But like I said, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm so happy that Anders decided to mention my organization in Uganda, but I promise not to spend any of my 8 minutes on that, so I will stick with that promise. Okay, it's always a bit, inconvenient to get on stage after Oscar with that extremely successful journey that Klarna has done. I'm going to talk about a totally different industry and a bit different journey also. So my name is Sofia Graflund. I am General Counsel of Northvolt, part of the senior executive management team and secretary of the board. So I joined Northvolt about 4 years ago. I was an early joiner, not the first ones, but early. So I came in and were given the opportunity to build the legal department, which also became the compliance department, the IP department, and now also risk and insurance department. And my ambition when joining Northvolt is that this is not going to be a traditional legal department. I really wanted us to be a forward-leaning part of all the different business opportunities. So we are really being part from when an opportunity is coming in until the deal is closed. And it's really a fun journey. So we are 40 now and continuously growing. So, Northvolt. Some of you have heard of Northvolt and some of you have not. Northvolt came alive with only one mission, and that is to build the greenest battery in the world. And I'm going to come back on what I mean with that and why this is very true with Northvolt and less true with some of the other initiatives in Europe with that. So we are currently building our gigafactory in Skellefteå. We are having started production in the end of this year for the first 16 gigawatt. But we also have the environmental permit to expand to 60 gigawatt hours. And our view and our mission is to have a market share of 150 gigawatt hours by 2030, which might sound a lot, but if you look at the automotive industry who's driving this transmission, only Volkswagen Group has actually announced that they need about 300 gigawatt hours by 2030. So there is still a lot of space for others. We also have a lab. Our R&D team is in Västerås. It's actually a huge factory also there. So that's where we have our customers. That's where we design the batteries and where we customize them for each of the customers that we are working with. So this is a very busy slide. I'm just gonna cherry pick some of the ones that I think are most interesting, maybe because I've been more part of some of them than others. So Northvolt was founded in 2016 by two Tesla executives. It was Paolo Cerruti and Peter Carlsson. They left Tesla to come to Sweden and to build this company. In 2017, it was the beauty contest, again, amongst a lot of municipalities. And we decided then to go to Västerås and to Skellefteå. And the reason for Skellefteå is that they were able to not only work with us, but also to offer us 100% renewable energy to our factory, which is one of our company policies, that if we build a factory, it will always be with renewable energy. 2018, we signed our partnership round, the seed financing, which was the financing for the lab in Västerås. But we also signed a partnership with some of the industrial leaders in Sweden and Europe. Scania, ABB, Siemens, Vestas, Vattenfall, Skellefteå Kraft was part of this. And they are also some of our customers now, so it was a reason for them to actually get into that. June 19, we took in our first bigger investors. So we had a financial investor represented by Goldman Sachs, and the other lead was a strategic investor, Volkswagen, which is now forming the part of the investor base at Northvolt. One thing that needs to be brought up here, especially when you're talking to General Counsel, is when we signed in July 2020. That was the biggest key milestone for me in this journey. We signed the biggest project financing in Europe, one of the biggest in the world, in the most complex structure that we're trying to survive now, but we closed it. $1.6 billion. It was that project financing has been my baby since I joined, and it took up 90% of not only my working time, but my life. So I came alive when we closed that, and that was the first time when we actually could say that we are going to make this. There's nothing stopping us now other than execution, which is in our hands. So there is where we are now, executing in Skellefteå. Moving on, time is going fast. I want to bring up that we bought this Cuberg tech company in Silicon Valley early this year, building on the next generation of batteries. So the batteries that are going to be in Northvolt's batteries from 2025 will be the technology that Cuberg is developing. And in June this year, we signed one of Sweden's largest partnerships ever with Volvo, where we're going to build a gigafactory with them and have joint development also. So, quickly on why we are the greenest battery in the world. And when talking about that, you cannot leave out that we have a vertical integration. This means, this is common in other industrial areas, but have never been made by a battery manufacturer. So it means that we are producing our own cathode, and we are producing our own cells. And when we can do this together, there's magic happening. And there is another aspect of that, and that when you hear other initiatives in Europe saying that we are also producing with renewable energy, they still only do the downstream. So they're still buying the cathode, which is a very energy consumptive process. They're still buying that mostly from Asia, and cannot have control of the raw material chain, and they cannot have control of what energy they're using to produce the cathode. So that is one of the things that we always want to highlight. The other thing is that if you want to talk about the green battery, you also need to talk about what is happening in the end of the life of these batteries. And when doing that, we decided to start our own recycling business. So we have a subsidiary called Revolt, which are accelerating its own business. So we are currently hoovering the market in Europe, trying to be pioneers in the area. And when crushing, sorting through the hydromet process, we will actually have raw material that we will then include and incorporate directly into our upstream and produce our own cathode. So our objective and our mission is that 2030, we will have 50% of all the raw material that is coming into Northvolt's batteries will be from recycled material, which is something that I am at least very proud of, that we are driving very hard and trying to form that market, which is immature. We also have, when we came, 45 seconds, so I'm not going to have time to talk about relocation of suppliers, which is very interesting. I need to leave that, so going up to next. But that's something interesting. We should talk about that sometime else, maybe when we talk about Uganda. So some fun facts. We are almost 2,000 people now from 101 different nationalities. I think there is like 195 in the world, so we are on a good way. Average age, 35, quite young. Female, 35, which we are working a lot on. The issue we have is in production, where it's actually difficult to find female manufacturing employees. But it's, of course, something KPIs that we are working on. This is only showing which segments we are producing within. I mean, automotive driving the capacity, but also portable, industrial, and grid is something that we are some of the customers. This is just a picture of the beauty in Skellefteå. And this is only the first 16. Can you imagine how big this site is? Someone told me that it's the site of the old town in Stockholm, and that's just the first part of it. So it's really, you become super humble when you start. I need to move on, sorry. And this is just something we're so proud of, our investors, our lenders. We have really reputable, good firms and banks supporting us. And thank you. Oh, almost on time.
Big round of applause.
Sorry about that.
Thank you so much to both of you. I want to hand over to Kristin, who will moderate the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andreas. And it is now my turn to introduce two more in-house legal people. So, Jenny Bergendorff, welcome up on stage. Jenny is the General Counsel of Skanska Sweden. Skanska is one of the world's leading construction and project development companies with its head office here in Stockholm. Jenny has a background in private practice before joining Skanska in 2010, where she's now leading a legal team of 27 lawyers in the Swedish office. I also welcome Caroline Falconer. Caroline is Senior Legal Counsel at Swedish energy company Vattenfall. She also has a background in private practice and more specifically specializing in litigation and arbitration before joining Vattenfall in 2015. She is also the president of the Swedish Company Lawyers Association. So welcome to all of you. And this is so exciting. We've now listened to two sort of new and up-and-coming, well, Klarna is no longer up-and-coming, you're already super big, but innovative companies. And then we have Jenny and Caroline, who represent more traditional industries, energy and construction. So when you listen to Sofia and Oscar's presentations, how do you see any similarities with how you are structured at Skanska in terms of how you view the legal department?
Yes, I think not so much maybe with Northvolt, but with Klarna, definitely. We are, I think, as you said, a pretty large team now of 27 lawyers in Skanska Sweden, and we have a very broad knowledge and understanding of the business, and everyone is very interested in the business when they work in the legal department. And of course we have a very good experience in the legal areas that are relevant for our business. And also I can say that many of the lawyers are actually part of the management teams in the regions that they support. So we are pretty much in the questions or the areas from the very beginning to the bitter end and everything in between. So, I mean, we contribute both with the legal experience, the expertise, of course, but also more like with common sense with a legal perspective, try to balance being both gatekeepers to mitigate the risks, but also to try to be enablers to make the business do the right choices going forward.
Yeah. Is this also your experience, Caroline, at Vattenfall?
More or less, yes. Maybe the difference here is we have more traditional setup for the legal team. We have a general counsel part of the executive group management, and then we have all the legal counsel reporting in that staff functions. We have not sent out the legal counsels into the business in the same way as I think you have done. But otherwise, yes, we support in all legal issues internally from the very start until the bitter end.
And you all have, I know that Vattenfall has about 90 in-house lawyers in your legal department. So you all represent companies with large, well, Sofia is still working on hers, but the other three of you work within really large legal teams. What challenges do you see, Caroline, in your daily work?
I would say, well, we are 90, but it feels like we could be 300 without any problem. The problem is always allocation of resources, where to put in the legal resources, where are they best needed at the moment? Is it actually the internal client screaming the most, being able to come to us most often, or is it actually something else that's in the beginning, in the startup phase, where you maybe need a legal counsel very early on to steer it right?
And what about you, Oscar? You're leading this new big, agile group of in-house lawyers. What challenges do you see within your company, which is in a completely different sector?
Right. So now I want to echo what Caroline said. I mean, there will probably always be a lack of resources, right? So you're always between a rock and a hard place, trying to help the client understand which are the right priorities from your perspective. But I believe, and since I joined, I mean, in my second life I will be a recruiter, I believe, and that is a challenge when you are growing in many jurisdictions where you need local competence to find the really best Italian payments lawyer, the really best equivalent in other jurisdictions. That takes a lot of time, and it takes away time from dealing with actual legal issues. But if you don't invest that time, you will sooner or later drown.
You were also talking through during your presentation about the different kind of contracts that you write, at Klarna, and a lot of your colleagues in the legal department do. What would you say are the most important aspects in drafting contracts, the way you see it?
So, I mean, I recognize the audience that is sitting in front of me, and I think probably what some of them might be thinking is not at all at our agenda. And we are trying very hard to avoid over-lawyering our contracts and make the user experience, because that's how we talk about our contracts, is part of our experience of dealing with Klarna, as easy as understandable as possible, because our counterparty is not schooled in law. And we recognize that entails certain risks as well. But in our opinion, that's a risk worth taking.
And Sofia, new innovative company, only 14 people in the legal department as of yet. What are your views of the drafting process? I mean, you will deal with a much different set of contracts. What are important to you in drafting those contracts?
First of all, it has been important for us to grow the competence in-house, because I have felt that it has been difficult to get external counsel to actually pinpoint what is important for us at the time. We have not been so much into the legal details. We have only been focusing on getting our contracts bankable. So we had almost like a promemoria from EIB from the start saying that this is what you need if you are going to get any money to this project. And that has been our Bible. So we have been pushing our customers, our investors, our suppliers, all of them to get into a zone where everyone is enough uncomfortable, but enough comfortable also to sign with us in order to make this happen. So it has been bankability, bankability, bankability only. And then we have in some certain instances been like, it's worth taking the risk just because we need to get over the hurdle. It's a little bit different focus. I'm longing for when we are becoming more into your mode, when we can, look at the best contracts, the more easily readable contract, understandable contract. No one really can read our contract right now. So legal is heavy.
You also have much more sophisticated different counterparties, which.
Oh, you mean the consumers are not sophisticated?
There's the different, but also, I want to nuance. I want to provoke the audience a bit. But if you have a contract with Visa, that will definitely be different than if you have a contract with a consumer, and that's how it should be. Just to, I'm not insane. I just want to provoke the audience a bit.
But it's clear that you represent a team that needs to deal with a lot of legal issues. You are involved in a lot of projects simultaneously, etc. So, Sofia, when do you decide to reach out to external counsel, and for what issues do you do that?
Mainly, our whole financing process, we have been working with external counsels, both in London but also in Sweden. So that has been a huge support for us. But then when it's bulk work, when we don't have enough resources internally, we go outside. But also, of course, when we have disputes, because that is depending a little bit on the dispute. But if you go into construction disputes and trying to get all that information and the evidence and documentation, all of that in place, you need to go externally. That's my view, at least. And we will never be able to build a team that can cater for that. So that's when we go externally.
And what about you, Caroline? If I give you the same question, when do you engage external counsel?
More or less the same. Always when we have a major dispute, we do quite a lot of smaller disputes internally, but in-house. But major disputes or disputes in other jurisdictions where we need to have the right competence for that. But also specialist competence where we can't do it ourselves to the standards we want to have. Then we usually go externally.
And does this play a role in the drafting process? Do you think about the dispute resolution clause at all when you're doing new deals?
Is that the question for me?
Yes.
Yes, I come from from working with disputes, litigations, and arbitrations for a long time before I came to Vattenfall. So yes, of course, I start with the dispute clause, and then I go to the rest of the document. But we have in our standard agreements, and usually we try to get the SCC clause in because we feel very secure with that. Personally, I like the combined clause where you have two levels. So we always also try to get Swedish law, for example, when we have a Swedish company from our group included.
And this is from a previous litigation arbitration specialist. Sofia, back to you. The same kind of scenario. Do you, being this small team building a company, you're on this amazing journey, do you think about the dispute resolution?
Not the way that Caroline does. That's really the last thing that is coming to my mind. We always have SCC also in our all our templates. We're always pushing for that. We lose quite a lot. We are fighting with and against the big German automotive industry. You don't really win a lot of those governing law and institutions. But for me, I want to go. I mean, I have a comfort zone of certain governing laws and certain arbitration institutes that we, can pick between. So it's different. For me, it's a little bit like just check the point, actually. I'm so excited to hear about this Express tool that you're gonna launch tonight.
I know, we'll get there in a minute.
I know, and I'm already
Or
discussing it with certain of our partners, actually. So I think it's something that we are all missing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good, very exciting to hear. Jenny, I mean, you're from the construction industry. I am sure that Skanska has had a fair share of experience with dispute management and dispute resolution. How do you view the dispute resolution clause? Is that something that plays a big part when you enter into new business relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely relevant, but we can't always choose because we have some of our customers are public, so they choose for us, and then it's always the general court. But I should say that one of my biggest take is that you need to be able to maintain a relevant relationship to the counterparty going forward. So, I mean, we have an agreement that we need to keep on delivering on, even though that's the agreement that's the debate of the dispute. But also, many of our customers are return customers or repeat customers. So we need to be able to work with them in future projects going forward. So, and I should say that, I mean, in my experience, if you have an argument or a dispute with someone too long of a time, you kind of wear down each other, right? So it's in negative way. So I think a quick resolution is definitely preferable. The quicker the better, maybe. Yeah. So the Express is interesting.
Yeah, and it's what you describe is that you have generally very long projects that are long running. What about you, Oscar? What are your, you mentioned the 4 kinds of contracts. Do you have the same kind of long relationship, or do you see differently when it comes to, disputes, when a dispute arises?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on what you mean with long. Klarna's been around for 15 years, so I mean, it's different from and our product is way different in itself. What we're delivering.
I'm thinking the contract itself, if it's a long-running contract or if it's more short-term.
Yeah, and to give you a lawyer answer, it depends quite a lot. We always try to have as long relationship with all our customers as possible. But then there are, irrespective of that, we always strive for having arbitration. But it all depends on which market you're in, and it's very hard to in some jurisdictions in Australia, it's a tougher sell. To opt for Swedish law and or the Arbitration Institute in Stockholm. So I mean, but there are obviously equivalents there which we typically use because we found those. That's typically the
and
best
when
way,
a dispute has in fact arisen, I mean, then the contract, it was signed, a while back, and the choice of dispute resolution method was one that you chose, back in the day. Once the dispute has arisen, how do you balance your options in terms of how to manage a dispute?
I think, one important, like how we think about it is you can't probably tell too much how we think about disputes, but all in all, it's all part of the commercial arrangement. And there are legal aspects, but there are also a bunch of other aspects, and that's sort of my encouragement to those who are supporting on the outside. You have to understand that this is a commercial deal. Legal is not taking over. We are one part of the equation, but not the whole equation.
Various different aspects play in. Is this also this? I mean, do you recognize this, Caroline?
Yes, I do. Maybe we have the luxury to be more look more at the principles, the matter of principle, and do we always dispute something, or do we always leave it be? But of course, we look at the monetary value, also the opposing party. What kind of party is it? How do they act in relation to us? Do we see a need maybe to stay on and to continue the dispute? And also I must say that we look quite a lot at the internal job that is needed for a dispute. It will require blood, sweat and tears from your colleagues, and I never quite realized how much blood, sweat and tears was needed internally from the company. When I was at a law firm, and now I see that we are struggling sometimes to find interest in the business, because the business people, they want to do new business, they want to go out and do something that's fun and now and here and the future, and then I'm coming back and looking for documents at 15 years old, and no one remembers, and we haven't the same archive system anymore, and it's like completely it's not doable. You can't find the interest internally to stay on with some disputes.
It certainly sounds very challenging. And we have a little bit time left, so a bonus question is how often do you end up in a full-blown dispute? Not often.
Very few contracts actually lead into a conflict of any kind. I try, when I write contracts or when I analyze them, I try to make them doable, very much as you said too. Let's write in the contract for the people who need to apply them in the business. Can they live with the contract? Do they understand the text actually? Because I'm also fond of de-lawyering them, because we are ending up in conflict so very seldom.
And Jenny, construction business?
Not very often, no. It's a couple of years. But I should say that it's more maybe one or two large ones, and then it's small disputes that could be with, other construction parties also, and so on. So, but not very often, no.
And what about the other two?
So far, so good.
So far, so good?
Not because we don't have reason. I mean, we have a lot of problems in our contracts. We are running really fast. But we try to mitigate and settle as much as possible. But of course, I expect it to happen in the future.
And Oscar, what about you?
No, I wanted just to tag on and add maybe to nuance what I said earlier. Like, you need, when you're moving fast, you need to take informed decisions, and you can't spend too much time on details and maybe not spend too much time on governing law. And
it's a balancing act.
It's a balancing act, right? And that changes over time where your company are, I believe. But I think we are, right now, pretty spared, I would say. Our business in the US are growing, so that is whatever.
So it's just a matter of time.
We'll all see the TV series. No, it's a litigious jurisdiction, of course. But all in all, we've been there for 5-6 years, and we're pretty much spared. So we'll see.
Thank you very much. This is really exciting. But as I know that you are very keen to learn more about the SCC Express, as I'm sure that people who are joining us digitally also are, as well as you people in the room, I would like to introduce to you my colleague, Lisa Alm, Head of Business Development here at the SCC, who will take you through the various options that you and your fellow in-house lawyers have once a dispute arises, but also when you decide on which method to choose in your contracts. So please, take it away.
Thank you. So as Kristin mentioned, my name is Lisa Alm. I'm Head of Business Development at the SCC. I have a background as an in-house lawyer, both at a law firm and at tech and startups like Spotify. And even though our slogan in the beginning was to run fast and break things, I must admit that I didn't spend as much time as I probably should have on all the dispute resolution clauses when I was in-house. But as we have heard from our brilliant panelists here, as an in-house lawyer, one of the things that you need to do is to try and make sure that your company can run as fast as possible without breaking too much things in the process and not winding up in problem. And if you do, to get out of that problem as fast and painlessly as possible. So, despite the fact that I stand here now representing an arbitration institute, I know that needing our services is rarely the goal of the day for you guys. It is rather the means to an end, the way to carry on with things. So each dispute that you have will have different needs and its own terms and its own special, unique snowflakes qualities to it. Sometimes you will have parties that are both keen to settle, to get on with it, to find a deal that suits them both. You might have an ongoing project where you will continue working together afterwards, and it's really important that you find something that works for both. Sometimes that's not the case, as we can see. Sometimes the key is that you want to have somebody that simply says what was right and who's wrong, and have something that is enforceable against your counterparty. So the benefit with alternate dispute resolution, which is essentially dispute resolution outside of national courts, is that it offers a variety of different options. So at the SCC we have a number of different tools. This is a slide with small text, but I know you will have young and good eyes, so you'll be able to read it. So what we have at the SCC is we have both arbitration, we have expedited arbitration, mediation, and as of this summer we have something called SCC Express, which you have heard a little bit about already. All of these will get the job done one way or the other, and which one that you should choose, it kind of depends on the situation that you're in. So I'm going to provide a little bit just on what they do. And most of you will be familiar with arbitration, but if you aren't, you have about 76% of the biggest companies in Sweden choose arbitration as the main method for conflict resolution. It's been around for well over 100 years, and it is a process that provides you with a result that you can enforce in more than 160 countries around the world. It's only one instance, which means that it's generally a lot faster than going to national courts. And the arbitrators that preside over a case will be hand-picked specialists for that specific case and those specific circumstances. So this is the tool to use when you have a complex case that requires, for instance, witnesses and a comprehensive process. Shorter version of arbitration is expedited arbitration. Still, you get something that is enforceable globally, but where arbitration will take 6 to 12 months, this will take about 3 to 6 months. And it's better for less complex issues where you don't have the need for a full-scale process. So both of these processes will provide you with a legal assessment of right and wrong, and it will provide enforceability, but it will not take into account the future relationship of the parties. So sometimes that's just what the doctor needed or ordered. Sometimes you rather need help to find a good deal, and that is probably the case where you want to go for mediation instead. So that's a flexible process where a neutral third party will help you guys to find a good settlement. There's quite a lot of difference between mediation and arbitration, and we noticed that over the last few years that there seemed to be something missing in between. Something that combines some of the benefits of arbitration with some of the benefit of mediation, and something that takes into account the need for speed that we have heard so much about now. And that's why we started discussing SCC Express. In short, this is a tool that offers neutral legal assessment in 3 weeks. It's a voluntary process, so both parties must agree to use it, either when they sign the contract or when the dispute arises. The assessment will not be binding upon the parties unless you agree to. The person providing the assessment will have the same qualifications as an arbitrator would. So the result that you get from SCC Express will be a very strong indicator of what a full-scale arbitration would give you, which means that that can provide the basis for a settlement agreement or inform the parties on how to move forward. So, like arbitration, it will tell you who is right and wrong. And like mediation, it will provide the flexibility of the parties to tailor it to the situation and make sure that the outcome works for everyone. And with the cherry on top, that it's really fast, and we provide it at a fixed fee, allowing you guys to get back to business a little bit faster. So when we presented this idea a couple of years ago, someone referred to it as quick and dirty dispute resolution. And I think that probably is a good description of it, with the caveat that it's provided by world-renowned arbitrators and backed up by one of the biggest institutions in the world. So we hope that we have created in this something that will help you guys move on faster and get back to business, remove the need to stay too long with us, because I know you don't actually want to. And we will see how this will be used in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, very much. This means that we have come to the end of today's event. Thank you very much. Thank you to our panelists. We're very happy that you wanted to come and spend a little bit of Friday evening here with us. So thank you very much. Also, thanks to all of you joining digitally and sharing this online. For you, I suggest that you, after this event has closed, that you remain on the event platform to read up and watch the premiere of the movies about the SCC Express that are uploaded and possible to view on the event platform. There's loads more of interesting information to find on the event platform, and also stay tuned for coming seminars next week during the SCC Digital Week. So thank you very much for joining us here today.